All right, so welcome back for another coffee break video. We're still on our E3 topics. Actually, before I get started with that, though, I did want to mention, I forgot to do it in our first E3 video, but hopefully you're hearing an improved sound quality, at least on my side, and that is thanks to my friend Zach, who so generously donated a blue USB microphone to the show, which was just so great. So hopefully you're hearing increased sound quality, and soon, once Jen and I are back in the same place, you'll be hearing it from both of us because we'll be on the same video. All right, so done with the shout out to Zach. Moving on, we're going to be talking about indie games from EA in this video. And there's just so much there, so many great things that were shown, and a lot to talk about. So to kick it off, I wanted to go ahead and ask you, Janet, so this is going to be too hard of a question, but if you could pick your top indie, the top indie that you saw on all of E3. If you can't, you can give me multiple ones, but I'm challenging you to one.
I think it would. Oh, what is it? Okay.
Hard question.
I think it's gonna be We Happy Few,
Yes.
which isn't just from. So we're gonna talk about like EA mainly because they have EA originals, and that was pretty cool. And Microsoft's always been big on indies, which we touched on in our last video. But yeah, We Happy Few, which we obviously didn't talk about in the Microsoft video. I just didn't want to get too into.
I was saving for it.
Yeah, I was saving it. That's great because like literally it was the only. Like if you have not watched the We Happy Few trailer, you need to watch the We Happy Few trailer. We'll toss in a link to it in the description. But it was great. It's the only like trailer that ever made me like cringe, or like I forgot what exactly happened, but I had like a visceral body reaction to watching it. And I was just so excited. I love it. It's dark. It's weird. I really like that. Like I don't know how you would describe that art style, or Jess, I don't know if you have a word for that, but like that art style really gets me as well. And I'm just like so ready to play that game.
Well, the art style really reminded me, not just the art style, but also the topic, really reminded me of BioShock a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave me some Fallout vibes as well. Not so much with the art, just the general, I guess, vibe of the game, which is a great couple of games to be thinking about, when you see an indie, to be thinking, wow, this is kind of like BioShock and Fallout and reminding me of those things. Like, that's really well done because those are huge game titles, just really amazing games. But definitely most like BioShock, because BioShock, I don't know if you've played it before, Janet, but it's just so creepy. So creepy. And the art style is really similar. So with We Happy Few, I don't know, I definitely also had the same like visceral reaction. Like it was so cringeworthy. Like I was like tightening up and feeling like so tense just watching it, which shouldn't make me want to play a game, but I really do. I don't know if that means there's something wrong with me, or like if I'm like, I don't know, there's a word for like, with like when you want to produce self-harm or something. It's there's an S, I think. Oh, maybe it's masochism. Yeah, I'm not sure. I should know. I'm an English major. I'm supposed to know all the words, but that's okay. But I really want to play it because I like being creeped out, I guess, is the best way to express it. And it was such a good trailer because, first of all, okay, I'm just gonna start with the logo of that, with the woman and the flower. Oh my god, it's so beautiful. I want that tattooed on my body.
There's like a weird like face shatter effect happening, and like it's kind of like Joker-esque with that kind of carving from the lip.
Yeah.
And it's just it's like that. I think what's so attractive about this, and it's so unfortunate that we have oddly similar taste in games, even though we play very different genres.
Yeah.
Typically, but I think there's just something about like you just know it's gonna be like. Not paradoxical, but like it's called We Happy Few, and you just know it's gonna be dark. It's like it's I don't know what the word for that would be. It's oxymoronic in its titling.
It's good juxtaposition.
Sort of. No, it's not oxymoronic, but you know what I mean. Like it's like you think it'll be one thing, but it's gonna be the opposite because of like the way it's set up. We're being horrible English majors today, and I feel so bad for everyone that taught us. But fine. Yeah, so I also dig on like the dark worlds. And I'm really like I've always liked one thing that drew me to Microsoft for the first time ever, because I've always been Sony Nintendo, as I might have mentioned before in the channel, but if I didn't, that's how it happened, is their push for indies. So we have like there's ID at Xbox, which is the Independent Developers Publishing Program at Xbox, which is what they kind of talked about a little bit as they were showing us We Happy Few, Inside, and like then the big montage of the indies. So, you know, that ID at Xbox in mind, with also EA Originals in mind, which is EA's push for basically, if you guys aren't familiar with EA Originals, if you didn't pick it up at the conference, it's basically just like EA has like a division where they've decided that we're going to pick like an indie game and we're going to like invest money into it and help out that developer with not just the creation of the game, but also like the marketing of it and the inevitable like distribution of the game. So my question for you, Jess, is do you see like, I guess, how do you feel about like these like large companies getting involved with indies on both? Like for me, it's like, oh, it's great because they're getting support and they're easier to access, and now, you know, I don't gotta wait a million years for Super Meat Boy to be, you know, on my DS and things like that. Like it's gonna start to get more mainstreamed. Because for me, I'm also like, oh, well, at what point is this gonna become like, I don't know, it's gonna kind of lose what it has. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, I love this question because it just brings me back to academia, you know, and the part of me that actually misses college, even though I've only been out of it for like a month and a half, is like so excited about this question. I'm getting like English senior sem flashbacks because for me this is the same question as God, everyone on the show is gonna get tired of me talking about English. It's okay. It's my show, you know, it's our show, so they can deal with it. So in English, you know, you have your sort of like non-canon culture, you know, or slam poetry. If you talk about slam poetry sort of sets itself apart from, you know, like literary poetry. And in a lot of ways they do that on purpose because they don't want to be involved in the culture of it, or it's sort of a juxtaposition or sort of a rejection of traditional poetic culture, which is really cool. I mean, I think you should have both, but it's really neat. And so we talked about a lot, you know, whether or not it's okay for like anthologies and stuff of like poetry to be including those things together, or it's sort of like mainstream culture's acceptance, like more frequent acceptance nowadays of slam poetry is a good or bad thing. And I have really mixed feelings about it. It's the same for indies, you know, because indies in a lot of ways, they're everything that mainstream video games are not, you know. They're sort of going against the grain, and a lot of times they're sort of going for something more artistic or more individualized, more story-based. You know, we see a lot of things in indie games that are just not available in mainstream games because mainstream games are geared for a mainstream culture, or their perception of a mainstream culture, when in fact there's so many gamers out there who want things that are different. So I think that I personally want to see indie games more incorporated into mainstream culture because video game culture, because I want it to change, I guess, if that makes sense. Because there's a lot of like woes I have, I guess, with the way that things are sort of run, with your big platformers and that type of thing. So I'm kind of hoping that indie games will be a good example of what consumers want. And the more accessible that indie games are, the more people will be able to realize how popular those games are, I guess. But I'm still concerned, I guess, about that if major corporations and stuff get involved with indies, that they're going to sort of like not corrupt them, but like sort of make them something they're not, or, you know, try to push them in directions that they don't want to go. So I'm hoping that even if major corporations start to pick up indies more, that there's still this incredible amount of freedom that indie developers usually have to go their own way with games, which is why we see these amazing creative pieces, you know, from the indie culture.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah, I definitely have like similar thoughts on that. I like the analogy that you brought up with like different iterations of lit and things, and how like, and I guess it, you know, we see this all across the board in the arts. There's like, you know, punk was like against like regular rock, it was different, and then eventually it became like, you know, modern day Green Day, which is very like bubblegum, if it even still completely exists. And I think now finally the word oxymoron does apply. I think it also depends on how you define indies, because you know, an independent developer is independent of a major publishing company.
Right.
And, you know, Microsoft and EA are pretty major, so it's like, you know, and I don't want to be, you know, one of those like, oh, it's not even you know, I just want good games, I don't really care about the labels. But then it's like, I guess in a way it's like, is it even an indie at this point? You know, some would say no, because are you really an indie if you're backed by EA, you know? It's like, I don't know, did you really make it on your own if, like, you're a trust fund kid? Like, you know, it's like things like that, you know. it's like it's like that kind of thing where it's like, well, is that really even what it used to be? And I think now that I'm kind of thinking about this question myself, I think the risk isn't necessarily what you mentioned with this corruption of indies, because, you know, indies like a genre and a style also at this point. I think we kind of associate certain things with indies, and they're you know, quote unquote outside of the box of what we get from typical AAAs usually. Mm-hmm. But I think it's more a matter of the indies that surface to the top, are those gonna become stagnant? So it's not so much, to me, I don't think now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think it's so much about like corrupting the indie industry, because I think or at least I hope that there's always going to be like some good indies out there, but which ones are going to rise to the top? I think they could start to become very like, kind of have those have the things that we don't like about AAAs, which what we don't like about AAAs is sometimes it's a lot of the same, you know, FPSs have been big, you know, as of recent. I mentioned that in my mini rant in the Microsoft video about how I hate certain IPs because I'm over them. But yeah, so that brings me to the game that we saw at EA Originals, which was Fee. Fee is very beautiful looking, and it has all the things I want in a game. It's like, it looks great, it's like a forest, and you're this cute little character, and you're doing, you know, platforming, and I love that. But it also looked a lot like Ori.
It did. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that gameplay footage that we saw, the gameplay trailer?
Well, I had a couple of immediate reactions. My first immediate reaction was that it was gorgeous, and I was so excited to play it, which is my immediate reaction to a lot of things. I just jump to conclusions a lot about games because I'm excitable. But then I was thinking about it, and I was like, first of all, it's like Ori, and second of all, it's a lot like, it reminded me a lot of Unraveled, not so much with the actual look of it, but like when they mentioned, and I know you and I talked about this already, but when they mentioned it's a story without words, I was like, I don't believe you, because, you know, in Unravel, they said it's a story without words, the exact same sentence, it's a story without words, and there's words all over that thing. There's a whole scrapbook that sort of explains, like, you know, the mild trajectory of what's going on with the levels and stuff, and I was like, it's fine that there's words, but just don't say there's not. So that made me really annoyed automatically, which is not Fee's fault, because for all we know, Fee could actually be a story without words. But I think it's, to me, even though I'm excited to play it, and I will play it, to me, it did feel a little bit like a game that was sort of intentionally playing off of what indie gamers like, you know, like it was trying to do the indie game style so much that it felt a little inauthentic to the indie universe, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like, it felt like it was trying a little bit too hard to be an indie game, like a popular indie game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it felt like it kind of had like it, and I'm totally open to like playing the game. It seems, mm-hmm. you know, I'm not saying I'm not going to pick it up or anything like that, and I think maybe what we're getting is like the starting points of indie, what's the word? See, I'm just so awful with words in this video, but like, tendencies isn't the right word, but I guess I'll just use it for now. Kind of like the tendencies or the characteristics of the quote-unquote genre are starting to become more emerging and more like prominent, and maybe that's what we're kind of like, oh no, this was never supposed to have like its own characteristics. But I mean, I think we'd be lying if we said that they didn't already, like, you know,
right,
cute characters in dark worlds. That's very indie games, and that's why I like indie games. Yeah, because that's literally all I want. That's all I want all the time. But I mean, I think in, you know, so kind of going back and forth on this because I'm trying to figure out my feelings towards this trailer. I guess in the trailer's defense and the game's defense, we kind of like, you know, quote unquote steal things from other things all the time. That's like what most creative stuff is. It's like parts of things, and you pick up, and things influence you. You know, right. How many indie games and games in general are like Metroidvania, you know, it's Zelda-esque. It's like, I think we're all kind of trying, you know, we're all influenced by the things around us, and I've seen AAAs get influenced by indies. Mm-hmm. I mean, Captain Toad, like, tell me that's not Fez, but easier with like because the Fez's map system was horrible in my opinion, but yeah. Like that was an example. When I saw Yoshi's Woolly World, I was like, so Unravel, like, it just in the sense that it was made of yarn, you know. Granted, two very different games in their style and in a lot of other things, but I guess, like, I don't know. So, you know, it's natural, I think, to borrow things, but yeah, I think Feed definitely rubbed me the wrong way. It kind of felt like it was trying to, I could kind of see through it. I'm like, oh, I know what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
You know, especially with the mention, too, of, like, how was it described? Like, of nature coming together or something, like the relationship between
so Ori
between us and nature. It just felt very like very like predictable, or like I don't know. It felt contrived to me, like that description of the game.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what I was feeling too, and that's one of the things that are so attractive about indie developers and the games they make is that they give us something unexpected. Like, they surprise us, and that I think is what we search for, not just as gamers but as, readers, or like like TV watchers. It's probably a better word for that. But viewers. Thank you, TV viewers. Show viewers. So with anything that we're sort of experiencing as a creative audience, I think we like to be surprised. And that's like a really big ticket order, for creators, because there's so much already there and we consume so much, that it's hard to surprise us. But that becomes more and more valuable, of course, the more there is out there, because it's like, wow, you've done what would seem to be the impossible. You've made a game that's unique, or you've made something that shocks us. And I think that's what the major pool of indies was for quite a while, is because there was so much predictability in the the gaming universe that it was a lot easier to surprise an audience. And I think now that indies have been here for a while, and as game consumers' likes and dislikes have become more defined as the indies have been added, it's hard to make an indie that's surprising. So it's one of those things. It's when something's new, you think this is it. This is what's gonna save the gaming industry, or this is what's what I'm gonna be interested in forever. But things start to get stagnant after a while. So I'm hoping Fee actually is surprising. I'm hoping it's not just another like Ori or Unravel. Not that I don't love those games, because they're great, but I want something new. So I'm definitely going to give Fee a chance, but I'm placing more stock in We Happy Few, because that, to me, is a more interesting game.
Yeah, it feels like riskier. I feel like, so I recently watched this TED Talk. It's pretty short. It's on how data is used to come up with Netflix original shows and Amazon original shows. Mm-hmm. And the guy talks about how, like, for Amazon, they you can watch the first episode for free, and then you rate it, and they keep track of when you pause it and stuff, which I didn't know, which is creepy, but it's
interesting.
Fine. Yeah, they know, they're watching you watch it. It's weird.
What if you had to go to the bathroom? Okay, that's false data.
But then it's how into the show are you if you're using the bathroom? I don't know. Maybe that could mean something. They were talking about that, this guy, and he mentioned with the reason that Amazon failed, that he named this one obscure show that didn't do that well. It was just okay. He's the reason that failed is because they used data the whole way through. The data said that people would like a show about 5 Republicans, and there was some other part in a in office or whatever, in the government, and it didn't do that well. But then so Netflix also did data research, and they were like, what if we just made it about 1? And it was called House of Cards, and it did great, except for the last couple seasons. But that's what he talked about. And he's like, well, the thing is, data tells us what you like, but in order to pick something that is more than just good, something that's great, you need to that's when you need to come in and be creative. So I guess really my concern with EA Originals and ID at Xbox is the person that's picking this, are they going to pick what's most interesting, or are they going to pick what's definitely going to be good? Because I feel like Fee, I'd be surprised if Fee was not a good game, but also I want more than that. And I think that's why Fee turns me off, because it feels like a safe choice. And I guess that's my concern with big publishers, big developers getting into getting their hands on indies, because I think they might pick the ones that seem the most this will work.
Right, and risk is where we start to see amazing games, not just good games. When developers take a risk, and we see that with the big developers too. But we've definitely seen a ton of that with indies, and I really don't want to see that go away.